Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Purple Breakdown, a podcast covering the Baltimore Ravens. I am your host, Alex, and I'm so excited to be back with you again. It is Sunday. I hope everyone has enjoyed their weekend and Valentine's Day. It was amazing. I know I had a great weekend. I got to spend it with my girlfriend. It was an amazing time. We got to go to the Miami basketball game on Friday when they took on OU. And let me tell you, that was a great game to be at. Very excited to see Miami win another game, and I'm rooting for them this Tuesday. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the Baltimore Ravens and what's going on there. So, Ravens have completed their coaching staff. Their coaching staff is complete. They've announced it. They've announced everyone who will be on the coaching staff. And I know I went into this last episode a little bit of at least the big four: head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coordinator. I love this coaching staff, and I've gone into it a lot, just saying how this much feels like it is a Ravens coaching hiring spree. Just the fact that they set down knowing what they wanted, and player and coaches being X's and O's types of people, accountability, but not only just finding somebody who knows what they're doing and is going to hold players accountable, bringing fresh new ideas, but this balance between new young talent coming in as well as older established coaches coming in to help balance that. And it's this perfect balance that I think is going to happen for the Ravens, that is going to connect with the players, hold them accountable, reset everything so that it's back in balance again, and we'll see this next year Baltimore performing more consistently and playing like they're Ravens again. And I'm really excited to see this happening. And it's only encouraged more by the working between all levels, between that players who were involved in the hiring processes, DaCosta with the general management and the sort of back rooms there for the Ravens organization, as well as Bisciotti and what he has done to not only encourage the hiring process, but just his ability to let the leash be longer for the coaches and DaCosta and let them settle it and handle things. And that just opens up the talent that they can bring even more. And I'm so excited to see how this turns out. And if you want to see the entire completed coaching staff, because I'm not going to go through every single one of those names, there's a lot of them. The Baltimore Ravens on their app as well as their website have posted an article that has all of the coaching staff hires that you can go read up on, and it gives the description of every single one of them and what they're bringing. We've gone into quite a few of them over the past few weeks and what they've done and what they can bring to the Baltimore Ravens, but that's just a more complete set, and I recommend highly going on and checking that out and seeing what they have said there too. It's a great resource, and I highly recommend everyone to go use that resource. Now, we're looking ahead. What are we looking ahead at? We're looking ahead at free agency in the draft now. We are fully in the offseason. Super Bowl's over. Everyone's looking ahead. And the Ravens have a tough offseason choice ahead. Well, choices. And that comes with how the salary cap looks and is going to be operated around. The Ravens don't have much in salary cap space. They have to save most of their salary cap that is available currently right now for their draft picks, and it's not leaving them with much to use elsewhere. I think it's $6 to $10 million. That's not really much there. They're having to save roughly $15 million for their rookie draft picks. Now, they do have a lot of draft picks. The Ravens have 11 draft picks, including the compensatory ones that have been handed out. And so I'm absolutely loving that they have 11. And that's a lot, again, a lot of draft capital to work with, which is something that the Ravens pride themselves on having, is a lot of draft capital to work around with. But the first thing that's going to come first is free agency, and the Ravens have 24 unrestricted free agents. I know I'm repeating here from earlier podcasts, but it is important to come back and reiterate on this point, how important free agency is going to be for the Ravens this next year and the years to come, on what they set up, how they progress going forward, and whether or not this can help them win a championship next year and win a Super Bowl. You have to make the right picks in free agency coming up here. And so step number one, and we've gone into this again, I know I'm repeating, but it's the time to reiterate right now. So just bear with me. We're getting some fresh ideas coming in here in a little bit. But right now we're just reiterating. Opening up salary cap. So this is one, it's in talks right now. Extending Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson contract needs to be extended, needs to be done before March 11th so you know what's going in. Lamar Jackson's contract getting extended could open up 20 to 30 million extra dollars at cap space. That's amazing, and the Ravens need that, and I would love to see 30 million extra dollars at cap space open up. But if we're playing conservative, 20 million is just as good. Would love to see the 30 million. Because all NFL teams, too, are also getting extra cap space with the NFL expanding cap space, too. I mean, the Ravens could be getting $22 to $23 million more in money to work around with because of this expanded NFL cap space. And it's just showing how successful the NFL has been over these past few years, and the TV contracts and more money is getting put out there. And that will help a lot. The other thing that I'm looking at is still Marlon Humphrey, and this is going to be a returning point multiple times. We know Lamar Jackson is staying. That's just a giver. Marlon Humphrey is more up in the air. I know earlier in the year I said trade if can, get draft capital out of it, if not players with upside, or cut him. But this is really going to be up to Jesse Minter, Anthony Weaver, and the defensive staff, where I think what needs to happen is a conversation with Marlon needs to happen of what does he see as his future here at the organization and how does he fit into it? Because at the end of the day, Jesse Minter is going to be the one calling the plays on the defensive side. And if he has a vision for Marlon Humphrey and how he's going to operate and impact the team and be successful, then that's great. Marlon will stay because Jesse has belief in that, as much as we may disagree with that. However, if Jesse Minter has a plan for Marlon and he's going to stay, I don't think it can happen on the existing contract. He takes up too much cap space, and so a conversation will need to be had there. Are you willing to take a pay cut? I think extended contract with a pay cut would be needed for him to continue to be a Raven. I am still in the boat of trading or cutting Marlon. I think his time at the Ravens is coming to its end, and if you cut him or trade him away, you're saving $19 million in cap space that could go be used elsewhere. And if you're adding up that expanded cap space that the NFL is getting, taking the low end of what Lamar Jackson's contract could open up in the $19 million that Marlon could get, you're getting between 65 and 75 million roughly in that area of extra cap space to work with. In addition to what you already have, that's much more manageable to work with. That's a lot better, and the Ravens would much rather be in that boat, especially since you have key players that need to be re-signed in free agency that are leaving. Now, I'm going to go real quick into it, because even if you open up all this space, everyone's talking as if the Ravens can afford everyone. We can't. I think there were key lessons to be learned, and I went into them of this past Super Bowl, and I really think everyone on the defensive side of the ball right now is talking as if the Ravens need to bring in the number one defensive player who's going to be the defensive player of the year. We need to bring in Max Crosby. We need to bring in just top tier level talent. I don't think that's necessary. I may be talking conservative here, but I don't think it's necessary for the Ravens to bring in top level talent on the defensive side of the ball that is going to demand top dollar to go out and win a Super Bowl. I think if we've learned anything from the Super Bowl these past few years is that you get proven talent on the defensive side and free agency that doesn't cost top dollar, and then back it up with draft. And I've said this before, but I think when looking at the defensive side of the ball, I think you get just talent, 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 consistent talent all around. Not top tier, like you're going to be getting 15 sacks this year, or, however many tackles for loss and strip fumbles and all this. But you get it so that every player is getting 7 sacks. You have 3 players with 7 sacks and 2 more with 5, and then another with 4.5, and you just start adding this all up because you have so many that are getting back there that you're creating pressure through consistency across the line, that you come in rolling waves. So you add a lot of depth to your defense so that you can continue to have different looks, different formations out there, and constantly applying pressure. And so when looking at improving the interior defensive line, because when looking at the free agency, there's a few things that need to be focused on. First, the trenches, interior offensive line, which is the guards, and then the defensive line, both interior and the edges and the rushing. And then just adding depth, I think, further at defense would help. Say a little extra help at corner or safety would definitely help. I think linebackers getting very set between the rotation of Roquan, um, Teddy, and Trenton. I really like that trio back there. And then the final part would be adding more weapons for Lamar to work with. But you don't have top money to go out and get a top weapon for Lamar, a top defensive player, and then more in free agency. You don't have that type of money, especially with everything that needs to be done. And you're already having the need to re-sign Tyler Linderbaum, and he's going to take up $17 to $20 million in a new contract. And if you're erring on the side of $17 million, that's still most of the expanded cap space that the NFL is making that he's going to take up. And I would argue that Draymond Jones and Patrick Ricard are both two that need to be re-signed to help keep the Ravens going. And Draymond's going to take up $10 million, and Patrick Ricard could easily take up another $2.53 million. So it's the question looking here, how do you go about this free agency? And I think the Ravens do what they've done in the past on the defensive side of the ball. Let what falls to you fall to you and take the best available. When I'm looking at the edge rushing, re-signing Draymond Jones, picking up Joey Bosa. And then you have Mike Green, and then drafting another upside player in the draft to add in on that edge. And you have 4 right there and a rolling that you can have 4 different views coming in on and different talent. And I think that mix would be amazing. And I know a lot of people definitely say Trey Hendrickson. And Trey Hendrickson, if you're looking for the big splash on the defensive edge rushing side and what he could bring to the Ravens, Trey Hendrickson is that. But if you're doing that, that's your big impact buy for the Ravens. That is the big impact buy, and you cannot go do another big impact buy. It's that simple. The Ravens get one big impact buy this year. And I'd rather save that for the offense than I would for the defense right now, because I think you can get more out of the defense by getting proven players and focusing on it in the draft. And that will establish the defense, not for just this next year, but for years to come, because that's what you're looking at, is how can you keep a defense that is established for multiple years to come. So I would rather see Joey Bosa brought in there, and then on defensive interior, any D tackles, Calais Campbell could be that look, or David Onyemata. He could be affordable in there. And I'm looking at guys that are going to cost $8-10 million, maybe 11 on that defensive side. That saves capital cap space for other players to be re-signed. And I think on the guard, it's the same thing. You're looking at guard and replacing that in free agency, and then drafting somebody with upside that can sit for a year or two and sort of just learn. And I really still am a full believer in Kevin Zeitler and what he could bring to the Ravens, and coming back for a year or two. He's only going to cost about $10 million. And I think that's sort of where I'm at right now, is that defensively, to help make a defense that is going to be top tier for the Ravens and help establish them as their identity again, that defense as the identity of the Ravens, you need depth all around. You need consistency all around, and you can get that without having to spend top dollar. Because if you just bring in one big top tier defensive player, and the other players don't step up or take that progression like what you're expecting them to, then you're still in the same boat of not having enough effective rush on the pass or anything else with the defense. And so you are asking players to take a step up. Like, I expect Mike Green to take a step forward. I expect, if Marlon is gone, Nate Wiggins to take a step forward. I expect Trenton Simpson to take another step forward. I expect Teddy Buchanan to step up more. Malachi Starks progressing even further. And so there's defensive players there and key players there that are already established. So just add depth around them that can help them perform to that next level and teach them to keep performing to that next level. And you don't have to spend top dollar to do that. However, on the offensive side, you're looking at needing to re-sign key players. I mean, I talked about Tyler Linderbaum, and I think if you get Tyler Linderbaum and Kevin Zeitler, and then you move Emory Jones Jr. there into the other guard spot, your offensive line is set and established. And the Ravens need to re-sign Linderbaum because there's already way too many other teams out there looking at Linderbaum like, we want. Chargers have their eyes on them. I wouldn't be surprised if half the other league has their eyes on them. I mean, the Raiders probably do. It's just everyone has their eyes on Linderbaum, and the Ravens need to re-sign him immediately. That needs to be the first one. They need to be talking right now with him already, as much as they are talking with Lamar. They need to be getting ready to sign that contract with Linderbaum. Now, offensively, you're looking at tight end because you have Mark Andrews, and Mark Andrews is a great and amazing player. I mean, he's better. I know people would say he's taken a falling off in this past year, and he hasn't maybe shown up in key instances. He's still a good player. He has a connection with Lamar. He's that dual threat of both being able to block and receive. And I love seeing this. When I'm looking at tight ends, though, that need to go beside him because you're losing Likely and Kolar. Well, not losing, but they're going to be unrestricted free agents. You're either needing to re-sign Likely, who's going to stretch the field vertically and not be the primary blocking tight end, or you're bringing in another tight end in free agency. And the other one that I'd look at is from the AFC North with Njoku. You can get either Likely or Njoku both for about $10 million in contract. And Njoku would be more of a mirror of Mark a little bit, that combo block receiving, but you'd have still two elite top tier tight ends that would be out there. However, this is where I'm going to take my hot take today. If the Ravens want to make a massive impact signing that is spending a little more money, I would argue it should come on the offensive side of the ball at wide receiver. And people are going to disagree with me on this. I know it'll be more controversial, but I think the Ravens should take top priority in looking at George Pickens and signing George. I know George Pickens has had problems with the locker room, but the Ravens, with big X factor down the field receivers, have taken the ideas of let's get older receivers that could maybe get the last inch squeezed out of them to just take that last inch of what they can give, and it'll succeed. And it hasn't. OBJ and DeAndre Hopkins have not succeeded. George is a top-tier receiver. I mean, everyone's watched him for the past few years make ridiculous catches, and the pairing of him and Prescott was amazing. You bring George Pickens on to the Ravens, and the Ravens offense is going to be a terror. It will be unstoppable because now you finally have that true X factor down the field receiver that can make insane catches. And you pair him up with Lamar and Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews, whoever else you sign at tight end. And now you have a truly versatile offense. And this is where I think the Ravens should spend their top dollars. It's going to be a $30 million contract. It's going to be a massive contract. But he is already committed to being an unrestricted free agent and seeing what else is out there in the market. I think it would be a terror within the AFC North, and the Steelers would be besides themselves in seeing George Pickens come back into the AFC North and having to play him twice a year wearing a Ravens uniform. But I would love to see that. I think it could work out brilliantly and amazingly. And everyone's seen what he is capable of. Now, this is also a situation of if you bring George in, Bateman may or may not be staying. You may be trading him away at this point to open up a little cap space to make this happen and give room for younger receivers coming. Because no matter what, if you bring in George, I still think you're drafting another receiver in the draft to just add depth into the receiving room. But this is my big impact hire. George Pickens. I would love to see this and then not spend top dollar on the defense. Still, like, your big offensive hire would be George at that point, and you're going to spend about the same on defense, but you're going to spread it out between more players to add depth over the defense, so it's consistency, so that you're not so much getting one person with an insane amount of sacks, but you're getting multiple with consistent sack levels that are constantly putting pressure on the quarterback. And that's what we've seen win Super Bowls over the past few years. And that's the recipe that Mike Macdonald used. That's the recipe that the Eagles used. And a lot of those players came in through the draft. And so you're looking at spreading out your spending on the defense so it's consistent depth to bring back that defense, and then drafting talent that will be there for years to come and will allow you to retain a dominant defense for years to come. That is my plan for the Ravens next year if I'm going forward, to win a Super Bowl. And I know there will still be probably more cap space needed to work with, but DaCosta is amazing at working with cap space and working around that. And so I'm not so much worried about that. They will work that out. But I think the biggest takeaway from today is you don't need to spend top dollar on every position to win a Super Bowl. And you don't need to spend top dollar specifically on the defense to win a Super Bowl. You need to spend money wisely and create so much depth that you can have consistency on the defense. That would be my plan for the Ravens going into free agency. Start looking at the draft, who's going to provide the most upside to becoming the best players there, and how can we support them now with proven talent that can provide growth for them, teach them how to grow, and allow them this space to grow, because they're not going to be constantly facing so much pressure from the other team because there's nobody else that can create pressure. That's the plan going forward. And then obviously getting what would be the biggest X factor receiver out there that could impact your team to 1 million. That's the plan. Now, that is all I have for today. Going forward, we'll continue talking about free agency coming up, hopefully getting news here on Lamar Jackson's contract extension. Just understand with Lamar's contract extension, he doesn't have an agent, so it is specifically between him and DaCosta. They are talking one-on-one. It's very personal, very intimate. Not much is going to get leaked because of that. It's going to be very, very personal, and we won't hear news about it more than likely until the contract extension is done. But that needs to get done. I believe it will get done. But we'll continue talking about free agency. This next podcast episode, we'll go into the top 20 free agents that are going to be out there, and there's multiple Ravens on it. A little more solidified down specifically a salary cap space that would look good to open up for the Ravens this next year, and specific players that I would really enjoy seeing on the Ravens and the full free agency that I would like to see them go into and buy. Today was just sort of a little precursor of that, and just touching our feet into the water there. And then we'll start getting back into some more mock drafts. That's the plan going forward. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining in. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe, share, comment. Please comment. It pushes the algorithm for whatever reason it does. But more importantly, it makes my day because I love seeing comments. I love being able to interact with you guys and talk about it. It just makes my day. If you're on Spotify, please follow, leave a review, comment too. I enjoy everyone being here and listening in. I am so excited to see how this offseason pans out and the free agents that the Ravens pick up and the draft, which isn't in too long either. Enjoy the rest of this weekend and President's Day tomorrow. I can't wait to make another episode and talk with you all again. Have a great day.